Hey guys, welcome back to Kingdom Refresh. If you watched last week, you've noticed that we haven't changed.
Not one bit. We finally arrived.
So this week has been camp. I'm hoping that I'm having a good week, but it's probably hot, so I don't know. But so we're filming before the week, kind of discuss this topic. So we don't necessarily have the outline, but we are going to talk probably pretty deeply about anxiety and worry. Mm-hmm. So the first question I have is, how does Jesus's command to not worry about your life challenge our daily concerns and anxieties?
Yeah, it's because I feel like all I do is worry about my life. You know, we need to make a distinction between worry and concern. It's okay to have concerns in this life. It becomes worry when there's a level of helplessness that sets in, and there's an inordinate amount of mental energy and focus, so much so that it pulls your focus away from your eternal value. You know, Simon Sinek, he's a leadership podcast guy. He's got a lot of cool books and speaks a lot. He has this idea in business that the people who succeed the most are the ones who are thinking about the long game, who have the long-term focus. For us as Christians, it would be the eternal focus. We need to be focused on the eternity, not just what's happening in front of us. And that's why this is all tied. All these scriptures are tied to what we talked about last week, which is treasures in heaven. Store up yourself treasures in heaven where moth cannot corrupt. That leads into, he comes out of materialism and he leads into it. Now, all those things I just mentioned are the things that we worry about. And so we need to be careful not to say that we should just sit back and not be concerned about anything, because that's not true. Mm-hmm. He says, the birds are provided food by God. They don't have to worry, but they still have to go find it. Birds aren't just going to sit in their nest and be like, oh, sweet, God's going to bring me a worm. It's going to drop it from heaven. No, the birds have to go and find it. But in the act of going and finding it, you don't see a bird being like, oh, man, oh, geez, I can't find it. Maybe they are, but I don't think they are, biblically. So that's kind of the idea. And then he talks about, who by worrying could add any time to their life. In fact, scientifically, I don't have the study in front of me, but I've been studying for the message, and scientifically, there's effects that worry have on your life.
It's very bad.
People who are stressed out all the time live shorter lives.
Yep. People
who are worried all the time live shorter lives. My Fitbit app has this new thing called stress management, and it reads like all your vitals, and then you can go in and tell it, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling at this moment? What was happening? So it can help you understand how stressed you are.
Yeah. It
used to be like you need to get 10,000 steps a day because that's healthy. Now it's more like you need to not be stressed because you're going to die from stress, And that's a biblical idea, It's trusting in the Lord. He says, sorry, I'm like rambling here, but
that's good.
He says, little faith. The people who have anxiety directly correlates with lack of faith in this passage. It's interesting that he says little faith. I wonder if he looked at Peter when he said that, because that's kind of Peter's MO, right? Just always worrying. He's the worrywart, always trying to be concerned with the next thing. Yet on this rock I'll build my church. And so the more our faith can increase, the more we can build our faith, the better we can become at mitigating our worry and anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I do want to make a distinction that, because when people like me hear this conversation, they go, I'm not allowed to be anxious. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. Yeah. And in fact, anxiety is a very natural biological thing. Yeah. Like it's made for fight or flight. The issue is, when you have like actual anxiety, like diagnosed anxiety, your body is consistently in that fight or flight mode, and your chemicals, your brain chemicals, all that stuff are causing it to you to be in this perpetual state. Now, how can you get out of that? Things like exercise, things like that can help calm your body, because the issue is you're basically storing up all of this stuff, and it's going to release in a panic attack or whatever. And there's no, you shouldn't have any qualms about taking medication either, if that's something that helps you. I physically take medication. I have for probably 3 years now, maybe more. But finding something that can help you, because you just can't do it on your own, is there's no issue with that. But I think the conversation here is a lot of that when you allow yourself to be so worried, concerned about the things that are happening in your life. One of the things I know with our kids, like if we tell them something where it's like, hey, we're going to go to the pool on Friday, every single hour until we go to the pool, and it's Monday, they're going to ask when we go to the pool, Yep. And it's that idea, and so I know something that Gabby says a lot. She's like, she's basically like, cause, Oscar specifically, he'll be like, what's happening after this? And we're like, okay, we're going to go to Grammys. Well, what's happening after that? Well, we're going to go home. What's happening after that? We're going to eat dinner. What's happening after that?
I'm glad I'm the only one, man.
And then, so she normally goes like, because he'll keep asking, and then she'll be like, well, after that is tomorrow, and tomorrow doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Like, don't allow, we don't worry about tomorrow's problems today, basically, and so the idea is that we just like consistently have these things that we're just so concerned about. We're not allowing ourselves to be calm, and we're not allowing ourselves to basically be okay with what's happening.
Yeah. I pulled up a Greek study word for worry because, again, the same as we talked about a little while back, like the word slave is not the same word for slave that we understand it today. And so to anxiety or worry, it really has to do with concerning oneself, to have thoughts occupied with. Basically, Jesus is saying, don't occupy your thoughts with things that hold no eternal value. Don't be so occupied with what you're going to wear. Because again, he said, don't store treasures in heaven. He talks about clothes, food, and housing. And now he says, don't worry. Don't be so preoccupied with what you're going to wear. Don't be so preoccupied with what you're going to eat. And as I was reading this and studying it this week, I'm like, man, I'm like so convicted, because honestly, moving from California to Carlinville, I'm used to having like any kind of amazing food at my fingertips, going to any store I want to buy whatever clothes I want. Like everything's right there. We came back from New York, and I'm like, man, I wish I did live in New York because everything's there. I'm like, that's probably not a good thing. There's a lot of excess, and then you become so preoccupied with Yelp. Where am I going to eat? Then so yesterday, I had literally 10 minutes to eat. So I was like, I guess I'll drive to Walmart to buy like a grab-and-go salad. And then I forgot my wallet. And so I was like, dang it. And so I'm like, and I get all frustrated, right? I'm like, what am I going to eat? And then I started getting mad. I was like, this town has no food. Like, I want amazing Greek food, and I have this great experience. And I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to speak on this week. I'm getting so occupied and letting it frustrate the heck out of me because I can't get a good salad somewhere, So I went to McDonald's and scarfed that down and felt terrible the rest of the day, and probably made me grumpy the rest of the day. It definitely made me grumpy the rest of the day. But that's it. Why do those things have any power over me? God's going to provide. There's food. I can go and eat. If I manage my time a little better, I'll have time to go to like Wood Duck and get a nice meal or something like that. But instead, I'm working myself up in my brain right before an important meeting, and then what good is that? You've just worried about something that has no effect on you other than the fact that you're being kind of a brat. And that's what I was, and that's what he's talking about. It's these people are so obsessed with getting the best food, the best clothing, the best that, and keeping up appearances that it causes a level of anxiety that has no place in the believer's life.
Well, and we just talked about, the legacy aspect too. Like, if you allow that attitude to also take, you take that home with you, and then your son sees that, and then so like, it's that I feel like when we get into this state of worry, anxiety, over things happening, it doesn't just affect us. And I think that's the conversation that a lot of people don't talk about. The same goes with depression and things like that. Like it does not just affect the person that it's affecting. It affects those around us, because we can, suck the feelings out of a room, or we can be so angry, frustrated, worried that we're then short, that we're then, just we're not allowing ourselves to like kind of live life to the fullest, I guess. Or, like you get into a state where you're like, I don't want to do anything, and then you become agoraphobic. You don't leave the house because, well, if I leave the house, and I very much, like, especially when I was first struggling with anxiety a lot, it was, I need to go home and take a nap, because that's the only thing that I know for a fact is going to calm me down, because for me, it's the like health anxiety stuff. And so it's, this idea that I feel like I could die at any moment because I'm feeling things in my body or whatever. And so it becomes this idea of like, if I don't feel things, well, then, a car could hit me and I could die. But my house is safe, then it becomes your safe place. Well, then,
so it's like a spiral.
Yeah. Then it's like, I can't go in the kitchen because there's a blender in there and I can hurt myself with the blender, like
really? Wow.
Yeah. But that, and that, like, that's not me giving an example,
no.
But
yeah.
But that's what can happen, because you're getting so, and, I can't remember what book it was. I need to find it again. I think I let somebody borrow it. But it was somebody wrote, it was a Christian perspective on anxiety, but somebody wrote basically, I think it might've been a doctoral thesis or something like that. It was a very educational book. But for me, I love psychology. I went to school for psychology, never finished, but he's like, this person that wrote the book said, what you're doing with health anxiety and other anxieties similar to that is you are conditioning yourself. You are using operant conditioning. And like, I immediately was like, jaw, because I was like, oh my gosh, because what you do is you consider yourself, you go, I'm feeling this means this. And then next time you feel it, your brain automatically, so if I, like, so for me, especially like when I was majorly struggling, having issues all the time and not sure, I was having like muscle pain. And so if it was in my front or my back, I would be like, I'm having a heart attack. Like that's, but then, so the next time you feel that, your body goes, oh no, I'm having a heart attack. And then your brain is amazingly powerful. Your brain will tell you you're having one.
That's crazy.
So, you start having panic attacks, and your brain is, your brain is like, okay, something's wrong. Well, your brain can then cause those because you want to experience those. Basically, it's like the craziest thing in the world. But once I read that, I was like, okay, I fully understand it now. Like, I understand what's happening, and the ability to be like, okay, so I'm feeling this. It's not that. I'm feeling this. It's not that, and then eventually,
it's almost like the biblical idea, like take every thought captive.
Yeah.
and really weigh it out and not let your thoughts lead you.
Yes.
Right. Which is another thing. Yeah, I think people will, again, because words, like I said, words are different. People will think, oh, I don't have a problem with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality you do. Like I've said that all the time. Like, I'm not an anxietal person. I'm like, no, I worry about stupid stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not like, I don't have anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
But I am an anxietal person. Like, I let things get to me. And so that's when we make that distinction. That's lack of faith. Saying just because I'm not having an anxiety attack means I can worry about whatever I want, you know?
Mm.
Well, that's lack of faith. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so worried. I'm like, dude, first of all, skip a meal. You'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
God's created your body to work that way. You'll be fine. You might be a little cranky, but that's it.
Yeah.
But fixating on like, well, it's really a selfishness too. It's like, I wanted this
Yeah.
and I didn't get this, and now I'm worried about how I'm going to get this, instead of letting Christ be your portion,
Mm-hmm.
letting Christ be your fulfillment.
And when you allow it to grow, that's when it starts to become a problem. You know, like that's where, and obviously there's brain chemicals, there's things like that. There's physical things, but when we give control to those things, that's when it starts to become worse and we spiral, because you feel it, like your body is experiencing it. It's not just, it's not like, oh, I have anxiety. It's your body is experiencing what would happen if you know, like for me, for quite a long time, I was like, honestly, I wish I would just have a heart attack, because then I would know what it felt like, you know?
Yeah, and you'd be almost validated.
Yeah, like,
and then now
okay.
next time you're like, nah, it's not a heart attack. I've had a heart attack before.
What I was experiencing before wasn't that big of a deal. Obviously, not a good thing, but you know, it's that, like, if I could just experience, because your brain is so like our brains are so powerful, so incredibly powerful, and it's amazing.
Defies logic too.
Yes.
Your brain will trick you so greatly. It's insane. You ever heard of the Mandela effect?
Mm-hmm.
Where like people like Tostinos or Totinos. You ever seen that?
Yeah, I think it's a government conspiracy, but
They're just like messing with us.
yeah,
Because there's like millions of people will remember something one way.
Yeah.
How about this one? Luke, I am your father.
It's,
Never said that.
No, I am your
He
father.
never said that.
Yep.
And everybody remembers it. No, I heard him say, Luke, you know, your brain could just fill in the blanks all you want. It's just crazy what your brain could do.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
I used to think that I could basically like predict what people were saying, because as somebody was talking, I could basically be saying it like a millisecond after them.
Oh,
you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
And so you're like, oh, I know, but it's because your brain is processing it to, like, you know,
It's
like,
so funny you say that. When I was a kid, I used to think that too. I'm like,
you're just like,
you could almost mouth it along with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
It's
funny.
just like funny. What examples from nature does Jesus use to illustrate God's provision, and how can these examples strengthen our faith? So obviously you have the birds, you have the flowers of the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wasn't there one other?
Well, here, let's take a look.
Yeah, I guess.
So why worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, neither toil nor spin. Which I never really fully understood that until I moved here. Like, we have gorgeous flowers everywhere. Like, and don't even have to try. They bloom up. That's not the way it was in California. Like, everything's dead. The desert. And yet I say to you, even Solomon, that's the other one, Solomon in all of his glory. Now if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is, thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? And I always, every time I read this now, if he dresses the lilies with beauty and splendor, how much more will he clothe you? How much
or
more
there's
will he clothe you?
beautiful things too.
You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things. So, you know, it's like, it's focusing on the glory of the Lord, and you know, the heavens declaring, all creation declaring the glory of the Lord, realizing it's like, okay, I'm not the one in control here. I may feel, do you feel in charge? I may feel like I'm in charge. That's Bane from Batman.
What? You're quoting Batman? What?
And so much of the lack of faith is trying to control or feel like we're always in control.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got this. I'm fine. Oh, this bill came. It's up to me to figure out how to do it. And then it gives way to worry because you're not trusting that God's going to provide.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to eat. I got to figure this out. I'll just go to McDonald's or whatever, It's like, God provides. You're fine.
Yeah.
Just don't focus on it.
I mean, we talked about manna. Like, can you imagine, like, you literally have no food and you're just expectant that when you wake up in the morning, it's going to be there? Like, what?
And imagine, what if you're gluten-free?
Oh, no.
I'm gluten-free and I don't know. Well, here's some quail. I'm vegan, too. Yeah. Well, guess what?
Yeah. But, the idea that, like that right there, I mean, and we see it happen, some of them did store up and then it would
And it
mold,
goes
like you
bad,
said.
yeah.
Like,
That's funny.
It's like that. If we trust him to provide for the things that are just in nature and exist, then why can't he provide for us? Why can't we trust him?
Yeah.
In verse 27, it says, can any one of you worry by worrying add a single hour to your life? How does this question put our worries into perspective?
There's a debate over this verse because the word there is a measurement term, can add a cubit to your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so people tend to think, oh, there's actually translations that say can add a cubit to your stature, like can make you taller. So there's two ways to read it. Well, we know quite literally that excessive worry and stress and anxiety lowers your life expectancy.
It causes you to be more hunched, more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, and I can attest to that. Just like you're constantly like straining your muscles. You're constantly just like bent over because it's just this, like, it controls your body. Like, it just feels.
Yeah. But the other way to look at it is, let's say that adding a cubit to your stature is what he's talking about, basically building your own profile.
Yeah.
Making yourself look bigger. Your all your worry, all your concern, all your anxiety, because a lot of anxiety and a lot of concern is, how do other people see me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's interpersonal. And so I love that verse can be read in both those ways. You can't add yours to your life, but you also can't add to your stature by worrying.
Yeah, it does nothing but harm.
Yeah. God's the one who defines you.
Mm.
Christ is the one who gives you value and builds your profile.
What does seeking God's kingdom and righteousness look like in practical terms?
Yeah. There's another song. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It's kind of like, oh gosh, I'm real time rendering an analogy in my head here, because it's I'm in the throes of it right in the message, especially. Seek first the kingdom of God. Yeah, so if you're in a desert and all you see is sand and you're out of water, you're not going to do well to just look on the horizon for water. Because I don't know if you ever noticed, like you look over, it's a hot day, the mirage effect.
Yeah, or like fresh roads. You can always,
you always see
it looks like there's puddles.
Yeah, it looks like there's puddles in it because it's a mirage. So if you're seeking just to drink water in the desert, you're gonna have a hard time trying to find water. But if you look for the oasis, you'll know that you'll find water. And that's it. The kingdom of God should be our oasis in the desert. Look around. Don't seek just something that will satiate now.
Mm.
Look for a place where springs flow, right? There's trees, there's grass. Obviously, that's a living place. That's a place that's always going to provide water for me.
That's
I'm
good.
going to go
You
and
need to
find
write
that.
that down.
I'm sure I stole it from something. It's somewhere in my... I'm going to use it in the message, so this is the second time you've heard it this week.
Yeah. How can we balance responsible planning for the future with the command to not worry about tomorrow?
Yeah. That's very practical, but also good because
Yeah, because I mean the idea
you have
like,
to plan for the
well,
future.
don't worry about tomorrow. Oh, then okay, I don't have to think about the future then.
Yeah. There's a difference between like being consumed and concerned with something. Honestly. It's really liberating if you plan.
Mm.
And I've told you this before, I feel like I'm a very productive procrastinator.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I get really energized by like,
Last minute.
yeah, my taxes are due in an hour.
Yeah.
Well, not that bad, but the last minute thing.
Yeah.
But man, there's a danger of just causing crushing stress and anxiety that doesn't need to exist anymore.
Mm.
So sometimes the way to not be an anxietal person or a person who worries is by not creating scenarios in which you have to worry.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about a few weeks ago. The whole idea of delayed gratification is you put $100 a month away, starting in your 20s. You'll have $1 million by the time you're 60 or 70, just because of compound interest. It's quite easy today to put $100 away. It doesn't make me worry and stress me out to put away $100. In 20 years, I'm going to have to put away $1,500 a month. That's going to cause me worry.
Mm-hmm.
So proper planning actually mitigates worry in the future, I think.
Yeah, I think the idea is, like you have a destination. Like, where do you want to be? Okay. What's that thing? But not necessarily worrying about the steps to get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to think toward the future and plan, but don't worry about those plans.
Yeah.
Don't, I think I talked about it before. Like for me, it was like, I'm, 20 something, like I want to find the person I'm going to marry.
Yeah.
And so it was always that excuse of like, well, like if you just tell me who it is, like tell me how long it's going to be, and then that'll be fine,
Yeah.
But what that was doing was just, I was worrying about it. I was causing worry because, in my head it was, what if I never do? What if I, like.
Yeah, man, that's good. The what if, it's like the stuff that it should have no effect on you because it's not even real.
Yeah. We actually have, I just thought about it. We have a book at home called The What If Monster.
Oh.
And it's this little boy, and he's like, what if, what if I fall, like he's climbing a tree? What if, I get in the pool and people make fun of me? What if? And then he's like, what if, so it's this what if monster. And he's like, hold on a minute. Like you keep, I keep, like this girl's like, I hear all your worries. I hear all these things, but like, what if it's not that way? Mm-hmm. And then it's like, what if you climb and people think you're really cool? What if you jump in the pool and everyone claps? So it's this idea of like, these what ifs we have can either detriment what we're doing or they can raise us up.
Yeah.
And so where, like, are you, not that you need to be a completely positive person all the time and always look at the glass half full. I mean,
and naivete,
yeah, like I feel like I'm always on the other side. Like I'm like
pessimistic.
I'm always pessimistic, like, because for me it's more logic, so I'm like, okay, logically this shouldn't work, or logically this whatever, you know, and it can become that idea of like, well, it's never going to happen because because logically it doesn't work out or whatever. But there's a lot of things that logically don't.
What's the old phrase? It's the optimist says the glass is half full. The pessimist says the glass is half empty, but the physicist knows that it's completely full.
Mm-hmm.
It is, because there's air.
Yeah.
And water.
Yeah.
It's full of something, you know.
Mm.
And so maybe optimism is it more full of worry and doubt, or that's the pessimism, or the optimism is what like you said, what if they clap, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes we can get too far that way too. We can get so optimistic that we just believe that everything is going to be in our favor and whatever, and then we get like, you know, that one thing that doesn't tanks you. Yeah. So I think there's a delicate balance there, which I think is the idea of like, don't worry about it, have peace, because no matter if it goes well or bad, you're still here.
Yeah,
you know.
It's been said that the pessimist is often seen as right more than the optimist, because the optimist always has to be right. Because if you're a pessimist, one thing goes wrong in 100 and you're right, you're vindicated. But if you're an optimist and one thing goes wrong in 100, you're wrong, because you're not 100% right.
Yeah.
Like, and I tend to try to err on the side of optimism, and I will get frustrated by pessimists, because I'll be like, oh, this is going to be great because if we do this and that and the other, yeah, but this didn't work. It's like, oh, you just changed the whole temperature.
The one aspect, yeah.
Yeah, because of one little aspect of something.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I got this new car and it has, great range and goes really fast. Yeah, but what if you break down?
Yeah. I'm an existentialist, actually. The glass doesn't exist.
There you go. Yeah.
In what ways can we remind ourselves daily of God's provision and care for help reducing anxiety?
Say that again.
In what ways? Like, in what ways can we remind ourselves daily of God's provision and care?
Oh, that's why you're pointing at this.
Yeah. It's like,
I was like, what are you pointing at? Is my watch going off?
The Bible.
Here it is, right there. And yeah, if you want to, oh gosh, I'm going to see if I can remember this, because I wrote this. Okay, if you're reading the New Testament, if you want to know, I'm not going to remember it. I'll come back to it some other time and I'll let you know. But it's kind of the idea is, if you want to know about Christ, read the Gospels. If you want to know what's required of Christ, read the epistles. If you want to know the result of following Christ, read the book of Acts. And if you want to know the reward for following Christ, read Revelation. And it's the same with the Old Testament. If you want to know the road that led to Christ, read all the history books. If you want to know how to please God, read the wisdom books. If you want to know the reward for following Christ, read the prophecies. And or the reward and or the punishment.
Yeah. How does consumer culture and societal pressure contribute to the worries Jesus addresses in this passage?
Yeah, it's kind of the flip side of what we're going to look at next week. It's judge not lest you be judged. Because sometimes we're judging by a metric that God certainly doesn't want us to judge by. Yeah. He wants us measured against righteousness and holiness. Sometimes we're measuring ourselves against opulence and wealth and prominence and prestige.
Well, it's the idea. I mean, I just remember as a kid, like, your friend gets blank thing, like, oh, he got the Wii, like it's like this, this idea of like I remember, like, for me, I had every Pokemon card except Charizard. Never had one.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Never could get it. But I had friends that had it, and it was like, man, if I could only get Charizard, like it just becomes this, becomes this like pressure of like I may be good, but I'm not as good as that.
How different times are now, because like my son's like, man, Micah got a Charizard or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, Amazon. Mewtwo on the way.
Yeah.
Trump that fool. You
Yeah.
know, the most powerful. So yeah, it's funny how we're thankful for what we have, man. This Bible's like shedding all kinds of stuff all over me. And there's an analogy there.
Yeah.
You should be so close with your Bible that it gets all over
Warren
you.
Bible. Yeah.
But yeah, this is actually, you mentioned the Wii thing. I got the first PlayStation, so it was a 32-bit, right, for Christmas. It was probably about a year old, and I was so stoked. But all it came with was the demo pack of games, so you could only play one level of every game. I was happy with it. I didn't care. And then my friends got Nintendo 64. That's double the amount of bits. I don't even know what bits do as a little kid, but I know that that's better. And then like I'm like, oh, PlayStation, I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
They got a Nintendo 64. Look at the graphics, you know. That's the comparison being the thief of joy for sure.
Yeah, because like it is exciting. Like you have this thing, but then it becomes obsolete.
Yeah, we do that with phones. It's like, man, I love this phone. You know, it takes pictures of all the amazing video, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, but the new one.
Yeah.
It has all these sensors and things that they're talking about that I don't even know what they do, but I know that I don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the market, right? Like, or I mean, the same goes for clothing and stuff. Like how often does the in fashion change, you know, like, and so you buy a $500 Supreme t-shirt because that's the current, you know, like cool thing. And then next week it's no longer cool. So you buy something else that's, you know, it's like,
you know how to tell when things aren't cool anymore? What? Is when there's a Christian knockoff version of it. Instead of Supreme, it says Salvation.
I didn't know there was that. But yeah, I mean, like, well, I mean, you look at a company like Supreme, like they sell wallets, but then they also sell like just the most random things, and they sell them for the most astronomical prices. And for some reason they sell out every time, you know, it's like, but it's all because of the name. It's all because of the brand. It's because, oh, I've got this from Supreme. Like, you know,
it was always weird to me too. So I'm not going to call them out by name, but I would hire guys to go and play gigs with me, knowing full well I'm not paying them that much. And being a musician, you don't make a lot of money. And here I am paying them, being the guy that people come to see to play or whatever, right? And they show up wearing like Saint Laurent boots, and like, I'm like, dude, your whole outfit right now is like $5,000. That's crazy. And I got like Forever 21 on. And like, one of these things is not like the other. You're trying to purvey some level of success, and a lot of people that will wear those types of things, like the Supreme thing, it's like, yeah, but I mean, you work a minimum wage job. Everybody knows you work a minimum wage job. What are you trying to front?
Yeah.
Like how, like why are you spending so much money to tell me how wealthy you I think you are when I know you actually aren't? It's just very hypocritical and very like unwise. And I struggled with that for a while. I think I mentioned in a message a few weeks ago. It's like I used to buy really expensive clothes, and then I realized I wore something twice, and people are like, "You always wear that." I'm like, "Dang it!" So I have to buy like 10 different $1,000 shirts. Nope, not gonna happen. I'm buying cheap clothes from now on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just think that our culture and society is always, it's always what's the next best thing. And if you don't have it, and I think it is worse now just because of the vastness of social media and influencers, you know, so especially for younger generation, like things move so fast that, you know, that it just becomes, and it can cause anxiety because you're like, I'm no longer cool. I'm no longer relevant. You know, And I mean,
You're
like,
speaking all my anxieties right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, coming to the end of my 30s in a few years, and I'm like, uh-oh.
yeah,
Am I the one, Lord?
yeah,
Am I the, because like you hit that sweet spot of like basically 20 to 35, like everything you do, it doesn't matter. It's just effortless. Like you're in the culture so much that you know what's cool. And I remember I used a word, a buddy of mine came to play with me a couple of years ago. He hadn't seen me in a long time. And I used like the word lit or something like that. And he like busted out, started laughing. I'm like, what? He goes, lit? I was like, yeah, you never heard that word before? He goes, oh, I've heard it. Not from somebody your age.
jeez,
I was like, what?
yeah. What role does faith play in managing our worries and anxieties according to Jesus' teachings here? A big one.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
That's it. I mean, we've been talking about the whole time.
Sunday school answer.
Yeah.
So obviously, which I think we've touched on this a little bit throughout some of the weeks, but we have economic uncertainty, global crises. How can we apply these principles to maintain peace and trust in God, despite all of the just absolute dumpster fire that's happening everywhere?
Yeah. It's good to remember not to trade what you don't know for what you do know. We do that a lot. We trade what we don't know for what we do know.
Hey, dude, we need a hand organ over here. How's about it?
Because, gosh, man, it's like we do that all the time. What's going to happen in the election? I don't know. But what I do know, I have my family at home. We're going to do a best bud sleepover on Friday, and I'm going to have a nice cup of coffee,
Well, it's even the, you look at news culture, all they do is seek a story.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have this idea of something is currently happening. We don't know any information, really.
Yeah.
And they don't really either. 53 dead, 53 dead, 75 wounded, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, well, okay, here's a statement from the, okay, we had a shooting. Here's a statement from the sheriff. 2 people got shot. Both of them are in critical condition. It's like, okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
That was very different than what you said earlier, just because you were seeking some knowledge that you didn't have. And so I think that that's a really good point, that we have this, this idea that we try to get these things that we don't know, but what do we know?
Yeah.
We know who created, we know who runs the world.
Mm-hmm. He desires a relationship with us.
And live in peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult because it is easy for us to get sucked in. I see it all the time on Facebook or whatever. Like, you see the outrage of certain things. And sometimes it's justified. Other times you don't even know what's happening. You just read one thing, and so if we do have peace and trust, then what we're saying about that thing doesn't necessarily matter, because we trust in the one that oversees everything.
Yeah. And sometimes you're just going to have to limit your intake of garbage. There's that computing.
Isn't it
programming.
a Christian song where it's like, garbage in, garbage out, what goes in must come out, or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a radio song. Maybe it's like Francesca Battistelli or something like that.
It sounds about right. But that's a programming term. Garbage in, bad code out. Like, whatever you put in, it's going to be out. So I remember during COVID, there was people glued to the TV, and, CNN would have the death count, or not even the death count, the projected death count on the bottom of the screen for COVID. I'm like, feeding that into your brain's not helping you, And then recently, they were talking about like the bird flu, avian flu, and it was almost like they're trying to like restart it, like reheat a souffle, And they, no joke, said the leading headline was like, at least 2 people have died with the avian flu. And then like they buried the lead, and you go into it and it's like, out of millions and millions of cases, and those 2 people, it wasn't really the avian flu that killed them. It was like a lot of other things, and they just happened to have the avian flu.
Yeah.
But they're trying to restart this fear toxin, you know, like, oh, remember how this worked before? Keep people glued to the TV, clicks, keep them scared. And it was, frankly, an evil thing to do. It's like, how is this helping it's just not helping anybody. But I remember that being so glued, and I would check the numbers every day during 2020, you know, how many cases, how have we gone down, how many this, how many that, okay, oh my gosh, you know, because you're feeding yourself these things that you don't know and you can't control. But the things I could control is, I'll wash my hands. Well, at the time, you know, it's like, wash your hands. We all really learned how to wash our hands back then, right? You know, I'll, you know, not sneeze in somebody's face or let somebody sneeze in my face. Okay, cool. We're good. Like, but man, we just built things up in our brains. Anyway.
How can the church community support one another in living out the principles of not worrying and seeking God's kingdom first?
Not worrying. Okay. Not worrying, comma, and seeking God's kingdom first.
Yes.
You're like, either one? You can't do either one? Yeah. You know, a simple thing is like, what are we proliferating our social feeds with? You know, does it say we're worrisome people, or does it say we're a peaceful people? We're at peace. You know.
Well, and I think the hard thing is the algorithm causes.
Yeah.
You know, so if you start looking at things that are going to cause anxiety, your feed will suddenly be filled with more things that are going to cause anxiety.
There was a study done, and like somebody showed how the algorithm worked. It was the amount of videos of police brutality, just in general, that were out on the internet, were there, and they were getting, you know, at one time hundreds of thousands of views. When the algorithm picked them up, it started feeding old videos onto people's feeds, and those videos that were sitting dormant with 100,000 views started getting 50, 60, 100 million views, because the algorithm decided this is, in this moment, sensational. And so even though it happened maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, there's people consuming the same content, in this case, police brutality from 15 years ago, that happened 400 miles away.
Yeah. Well, and you see that with other things too. It'll be like I've seen recently where it's like missing person or something like that. Like, and then it's like, you look at it and it's like 2016, you know, like, oh, that person's hopefully been found, you know?
Right.
But like it gets reshared and something, you know, pops back up on somebody's feed and you're like, why are you sharing this?
Yep.
Or you didn't realize, or it's happened with celebrities. Like, you know, somebody passed away and then somebody shares it 3 years later and they're like, oh man, so sorry that this person, it's like, dude, that was 2021, you know? But I think also it comes from an idea of allowing the church to support you.
Yeah.
So being willing to be transparent about what you're working through, what's going on. You know, there is never a point where the church does not want to hear what you're going through. There's never a point where you're whatever, you know, I get people, you know, when I was doing recovery stuff a lot, you know, they're always like, well, nobody wants to hear my thing, or I don't want to burden you. Like you're never burdening someone by telling them what's going on in your life. And in fact, what it's probably going to cause is them to have a heart for you and desire to see you change, or desire to help you out of that situation. And then it's our job as the church to be willing to be there as a support. Because if they let us know and we're like, we don't want any of that.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
not cool.
I was trying to find that study because just so it was very eye-opening, and I didn't want to just like throw it out there and not have it, but it's doesn't exist. No, I'm just kidding. It's out there somewhere.
Mm.
I think it was the Journal, Wall Street Journal. Anyway, if I find it, I'll share it to my story or something.
Yeah. So, what is the message on Sunday?
Judge not,
Judge
lest
not.
you be judged.
Yes.
Dude, this Sunday is going to be lit. I said it. I'm not too old to say it. It's going to be fire.
Yes.
It's
Food
giving awesome.
trucks.
It's going to be good. We got like tons of food trucks. And when I say tons, like that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
We got off the wall tacos. Everybody loves that. We got Reno's, which is like Italian pizza. We have hand dipped ice cream. I don't even know what that is, but
I don't know. It sounds good.
I'll dip after church to get some hand dipped ice cream. And then like American Grill truck.
Yep.
Which you know what that means.
Yeah.
And then activities for the kids,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
It's going to be great. It's
Yeah.
going to be a great hangout. I'm probably going to be tired, but I'm going to be here.
I'll definitely be here
Coming
because
after
I'm the
camp.
pastor.
Yeah.
And I have to. No.
Yeah. But yeah, it's, these kind of things allow us as a community to come together and I mean, like the last question, the hope is that people will feel more comfortable because they feel like they're in a community and feel like they're able to, build relationships and tell people.
Really, this is born out of my anxiety about not being able to find food.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to walk out of church
Yeah.
and be like, that's good food. That's good food.
Pretty
that's good food,
soon,
that's good
Raymond's
food."
going to start a Greek truck.
Dude, we need Greek food. Let's get some Greek food. You know,
Yeah.
I was kind of sad. We did a Wednesday night and the food team did Greek food. I'm pretty sure because they were being nice to me. And like everybody was kind of like,
Oh, it was amazing.
I loved it. There's a lot of people who were like, this is not good. I don't like Greek food. I'm like,
I mean, I feel like it's like, what is it in the Hobbit when the dwarves go to Rivendell and they're like,
Oh.
do you have meat?
yeah.
It's like, what is this? This green stuff, Yeah. And then, next weekend is the kickoff of VBS too. So it's going to be a action packed 2 weeks. It's going to be great. So yeah, we're talking about judging, and we hope to see you at church at 9 a.m. or online. We'd love to have you come online, even if you're not from the area. Invite people to come online. We would love that.
Yep.
And we will see you on the next episode of Kingdom Refresh. Do 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 do. Yeah. Outro music.